I hope everyone's caffeinated, because we have a long day ahead, and I could not be more happy to speak to my next panel. So I'm going to get straight to it, because we only have 45 minutes. We have 4 fantastic panels, and we also have a chance to ask, to hear questions from the floor. So I'd love to welcome on stage Ralph Regenvanu, Minister of Climate Change, Adaptation, Meteorology and Geo-Hazards, Energy, Environment and Disaster Management for the Republic of Vanuatu. Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, Governor of the State of California of the US of A. Lidia Pereira. Lidia Pereira, Vice President, EPP Parliamentary Group, European Parliament, Brussels. And Andrew Forrest, Executive Chairman for Fortescue, Perth. So look, we only have 45 minutes to try and tackle one of the biggest concerns that we have. But to start us off, do you guys feel a little bit forgotten? Peak climate concern was around the COPs in Glasgow and Dubai. We're in Munich, defense is rising. Is climate change falling off the agenda? Governor?
Falling off the agenda, I fell off a cliff. I was down at COP. The United States was a footnote. China sent close to 800 delegates. The United States didn't even send a stenographer. They sent nobody. They've completely walked away, abdicate any role in relationship to the issue of low carbon, green growth. President Xi is celebrating.
Minister, the US is the world's historically largest emitter. It's no longer part of the Paris Agreement. It has also cut most of the foreign aid for climate. What impact does this have for your island and for nations like yours?
Well, for us, we can't escape the climate crisis. It's already the main security threat to our country. So when the US takes actions like this, it becomes a threat to our security, right? So we are working in all forums we can possibly work with, in the coalitions of the willing outside. We are waiting for the US to come back on board, basically. It happened once, so I think it'll happen again.
We'll come back to that. Andrew Forrest, what do you think is required to actually galvanize climate action as, again, the world heads towards overshooting 1.5 degrees this century?
Look, I'm a marine ecologist. I just know that we're going to look back on this when we're in 2030, and we're going to feel pretty foolish we deserted all the values which brought us to where we are. And our values simply say that we stand against pressure like this. The science is absolutely clear, but so is the economics. I am, and my company Fortescue, is the industrial grade proof that going renewable is great economics, great business, and if you desert it, then in the end you'll be sorted out by your shareholders or by your voters at the ballot box.
But, Ms. Pereira, is everything a little bit more complicated? Because there was a lot of talk, for example, this week about the EU emissions trading system, how it's harming the industry. We heard even from the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, how it could possibly be postponed. So are your climate targets for the EU actually compatible with keeping industry in Europe?
Well, the issue is that we have, unfortunately, no longer popular support on the streets. And if we compare to 6 years ago, it was a much easier agenda to deliver for the younger generations and for the people that were expecting climate action. And today is not the case. But at the same time, what we do see is a clear commitment from the European Union, because we have our climate law that is binding, and until 2050, we are delivering policies. We are correcting some of the things that we didn't do so well in terms of over-regulation, but the commitment and the ambition and the targets remain the same, and it's climate neutrality by 2050.
Governor Newsom, what are you doing to fight the US federal government's reversal on climate policies?
I'm showing up. And look, Donald Trump is doubling down on stupid. California has been a leader in climate policy going back to Ronald Reagan. 1967, Governor Ronald Reagan established the first tailpipe emissions in the United States of America, created the California Air Resources Board. 3 years later, a president by the name of Richard Nixon, another Republican, codified California's leadership under the Clean Air Act. Never in the history of the United States of America has there been a more destructive president than the current occupant in the White House in Washington, D.C. He's trying to recreate the 19th century. He's a wholly owned subsidiary of big oil, gas, and coal. He's quite literally reopening coal plants in the United States of America. He's received close to $500 million in campaign contributions. He asked for $1 billion, look it up, in return for basically eliminating all regulations in the United States of America. De facto, he just did that yesterday with federal regulations and the endangerment finding. It is code red in terms of American leadership in this space. Low carbon, green growth. And I know a thing or two about this. I represent the 4th largest economy from a GDP perspective in the world. And we ran the 4th largest economy last year, 9 out of 10 days on 100% clean energy. 2/3 renewable energy. We've seen our GDP grow by 81% since 2000, and we've reduced our greenhouse gas emissions by 21%. 7 times more clean energy jobs than fossil fuel jobs. We're proving at scale that we can implement, we can compete, and we can dominate. But Donald Trump is trying to turn back the clock. And so we're showing up, but we're also showing what can be accomplished, the power of emulation. We are in the great implementation in my state. Final word. I hope, if there's nothing else I can communicate today, Donald Trump is temporary. He'll be gone in 3 years. California is a stable and reliable partner in this space. And it's important for folks to understand the temporary nature of this current administration in relationship to the issue of climate change and climate policy.
But Governor, many have called Joe Biden the climate president, but that didn't help with his re-election. So how important do you think climate issues will be back for the 2028 presidential election?
Well, you may not believe in science, but you got to believe your own eyes. I mean, people are burning up, choking up, heating up. We have simultaneous droughts and floods. Historic wildfires. You know maybe little about California. You've seen those images of these wildfires. Talk about being as dumb as we want to be. Places, lifestyles, tradition, being wiped off the map. Greenville, Paradise, California. And so this issue has been brought home in a very personal way, not a political way. And Senator Whitehouse is here. He's also someone that deeply understands that climate risk is financial risk. It's becoming uninsurable. This is an economic issue, not just a moral issue. It's not just a competitiveness issue. And so it's incredibly important that we talk in those terms to address some of the political dynamics. But it's, again, something we're on the other side in California. It's a big blue state, but also has more Republicans than most Republican states. And we have long moved beyond the partisanship on this issue, because there is no Republican thermometer, there's no Democratic thermometer. There's just reality. And people in my state have been mugged by reality. Those that have been in denial understand that we're on the other side of the debate.
Ms. Pereira?
Okay.
Oh, Andrew, you want to go first?
Who is it?
Go ahead.
Ms. Pereira, and then I'll
you.
do Ad next. Yeah.
No, I was going to say that summarizing some of the things that have been said so far, there is a moral imperative when we discuss about climate action, because it is about protecting homes, communities, it's about preserving nature, it's about delivering for future generations, but there's also ambition, because there's an economic model that proves it is possible, it is feasible, it is profitable. If we look back at history and we see the evolution of humankind, we had in the recent past, we have agricultural revolution, we have industrial revolution, and now we are in a transition phase from a linear model to a more circular model, because knowledge, because scientific progress, because innovation provided such. And there's also a necessity. I come from a country that is at the moment under a huge difficulty managing a huge storm coming in on the 28th of January. My hometown this morning was on the verge of being completely flooded because of climate change. So we have to be better prepared. We are talking about a country, a EU member state, where people have to be displaced on the 21st century, where salaries were not paid in its fullest because of the disruption. So we really have to choose between two scenarios when we discuss about climate action, energy security. It is either chaos and war, or investment and a true investment for younger generations and for our planet. Because unfortunately, what we have been witnessing so far, and what I said at the beginning, there's not the same popular support, but we do see the issues with our own experience. Part of my rooftop disappeared on the 28th of January in Portugal. So we really have to take action, and obviously we have to convoke everyone in our planet to make part of the difference that we have to deliver for younger generations.
Andrew?
Look, I just want to thank you for convening us, Francine. These are excellent speakers. They have their own knowledge. I can only share with you, ladies and gentlemen, I've seen the browning off of millions of hectares of Australia. I've seen the reefs you all love, the Great Barrier Reef, get completely desecrated. On the other side of the continent, you've got the Ningaloo Reef. But let's just say we don't believe in climate change because we don't believe in what's in front of our eyes. Let's just assume that you don't believe in the physics of climate science, but oh my God, do you ever believe in the physics of computer science? You've got to choose. If you don't believe in science, which one do you want? I mean, if you're all in on AI and you're not all in on climate, then you're a total hypocrite because you're backing the science you want to hear and you don't want to hear from the science you don't. But I come from the science and the economics that you may not want to hear if you're a hardcore vassal state of fossil fuel. Fortescue is the cutting edge. We burn 1 billion litres of diesel a year. We procure our diesel from across the world. That stops this decade. That stops this decade. Next year, we're switching on the world's first green grid. We burn as much energy as medium-sized cities, bigger than many small countries, and we're going to create even more. And with AI optimization, we swing that onto the entire company. We save circa $1 billion a year. So I really don't care if you do not believe in climate science. What I care about I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but I love my planet. I love organic life. And we're the hardcore proof that what we're seeing with climate denialism, with rolling back the clock to oil and gas only, is very bad economics. And that's my only argument. My children want me to say, Dad, you're a scientist, just stick with science, will you? Dad, you're a philanthropist, just stick with what you're doing for the world. That part of the world isn't listening. The part of the world I want to appeal to is business. Every cabinet room in every part of the world, every responsible boardroom in every part of the world, please listen. We start saving $1 billion a year next year by going fully green, period.
Minister, Vanuatu, we can applaud. Vanuatu was amongst the island nations that argued for and actually successfully secured the 1.5 degrees Celsius target. Scientists are now certain that that won't be achieved. So what recourse do island nations have now?
So we've been talking about the science being very clear. You know, the IPCC, the best available assessed science. The economics is clear. But what we are doing now, because we haven't been able to get through at the multilateral level with states to take action, we got an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice last year, and that crystallized international law. So now the international law is clear as well. States have obligations to address climate change. They have to take actions that reduce emissions. Licensing new fossil fuel companies is now a wrongful act under international law. And so what we need to do is what the EU's done, put laws in place. It's no longer political will. It becomes, we put laws in place at a multilateral level. So for countries like Vanuatu, very small countries, we rely on the international rules-based order. We depend on it. And we're seeing now, I think, with what's happening with Trump and so on, there is a growing unity among countries that want to reinforce the international rules-based order. That's our unity. And so if we can progress that, we need that back. Yeah, that multilateralism. That's the only way small states are going to make it.
Minister, what does this mean concretely? Because as you say, the ICJ noted, that all countries have an obligation to fight climate change, but it was only advisory. So have you actually been able to use this ruling to advance climate action concretely?
Not at the international level, but this case has been used in numerous cases of domestic litigation and succeeded. So it's added to the growing body of law that can be used against governments to force changes in policy and laws by countries. And we saw that almost immediately after the advisory opinion was handed down.
Governor, you said everything would change in 3 years. The global climate community, I think, has lost faith in the US's ability to support climate action. Yep. So if you were to become president, maybe the next president, what would you do to restore trust in US actions?
Well, look, my job today, my day job is governor of California. By the way, to put it in perspective, the size of 21 US state populations combined, California. And as a consequence, when we move at scale. And we talk about the power of emulation, this notion that success leaves clues. We're, again, no longer asserting our capacity to change the way we produce and consume energy. We're actually proving it can be done and see our economy thrive as a consequence of it. We have enshrined in law, in the spirit of what you just said, our goals through a cap and invest program through 2045. So we have doubled down in terms of a consistent regulatory framework, by the way, that has invited in tens of billions of dollars of investment in this space, 60 ZEV manufacturer supply chains moving in the state of California. All the R&D in electric vehicles dominantly is in my home state. We set the first goals for 100% zero-emission vehicles by 2035. Of course, Trump administration has vandalized that, but we jump-started. That investment was 29% in the last quarter of all new car purchases. So we're continuing to move, continuing to thrive. And so the point is subnational in the context of your prior point, because folks haven't walked away globally, and I don't think this, I know this. I happen to co-chair the MOU Under 2 coalition, where we have folks from all across the world at the state level that don't care about the prevailing winds at the federal level, that are in the how business, that are working and implying these ideals, working with business, not just working with governments to move forward. So that gives me confidence. I know 3 years is a long time, but it gives me confidence that we continue to weather the storm. Final point, it's what Andrew said. The ultimate confidence is the ultimate gauge, and that is the ROI. He's making the business case at scale. This is one of the largest miners on planet Earth. That's about to save $1 billion a year in energy costs because he gets it and he gets things done.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Look, and I'd just like to, thank you, Governor. I'd just like to turn our attention to Europe. Europe, you're focusing here hard on your military security, on your geostrategic security, and it's going to take a while if you want to get to full autonomy, maybe at least $1 trillion. But everything stands on your energy security. You're not an independent, autonomous group of nations unless you have full energy security. Switching between President Putin to President Trump, well, choose your own poison, Europe. I'm just saying that if you wind up with 80% of all your gas coming from one country, it doesn't matter if it's the United States or Russia, I don't think you're that autonomous. So my simple message to you is you have a bank of energy called North Africa, which is multiple times of anything which Saudi Arabia will ever produce, and it's right on your doorstep. The Kingdom of Morocco, it's a 14th century monarchy. It's a little stable, it's a little boring. That's perfect to develop very large energy systems in. So I'm putting a proposal to Europe now that we develop a fully green state in Morocco. We drive down energy prices, making Morocco one of the most investable nations on earth. That helps a huge amount with all your immigration issues across Europe. But it also helps Europe massively because it can drive the greening of Western Europe. Now, we can do this. We've proven it in our own company, Fortescue. Trust what someone does just as much, even more than what they say. We're doing it. We can take that model straight across to Morocco, straight across to Europe. Laying cables at 2 to 2.5 gigawatts of cable isn't difficult. We can do it in about a year. We lay 40 to 50 of these electrical cables, which we can do. It's within our balance sheet in the next several years. And we've created an energy supply for Europe approximating the scale of Germany. And so Europe, you reach to the Nordic countries and you got way more energy independent. And now I'm saying reach to your other neighbours, reach to Morocco, and reach to Fortescue. Fortescue will stand behind this and turn Europe green to have much more competitive energy prices. You'll be in command of your own destiny. You will not be a vassal state to anyone.
Lidia Pereira.
What Andrew is saying is very right, and that's actually the case for clean technologies. I have been pushing for this agenda in Europe. California is a great example. But yet the investment on clean technologies, if we compare Europe and US, in the US there's still, even if Donald Trump is not engaged with his concerns for climate change, but still the venture capital on clean technologies in the US is double or far more double than the investment that is made in Europe. But it is true, like in Europe, we don't have natural resources, so we better invest our knowledge, our money into a technology that we still have some level of, we are still pioneers on some of those solutions. And obviously, when we talk about climate, it's obvious that disruptive weather events, they expose our vulnerabilities to critical infrastructure. And once again, referring back to what's happening at the moment in Portugal, like there's still people without electricity, there's still people without access to water. So it is a vulnerable country at the moment. Not to speak about the recovery costs that it implies. We are talking about specifically 4.5 billion euros just for this occasion. So I would say clean technologies and fixing the fragmented energy market in Europe, it is crucial to be strategic and talking about defense. And if we talk about defense, we cannot be talking about fighter jets that use oil resources, right? We have to find alternative ways to be able to not to depend on third countries. So when we talk about climate, we are talking about security, we are talking about innovation, we are talking about an economic model that I think Andrew very much well put it forward. And I think it is something that we really need to push for in Europe, and it needs the commitment from prime ministers. Because I can tell you, I come from the European Parliament. The issue is not in the European Parliament. The issue is at the heads of state to agree on the strategy to pursue and combining national objectives and European interests, which is often the case, the national interests and the European objectives. But I think we have to shift here a bit the mindset.
And the EU has agreed to cut emissions quite significantly, but there's not a real framework for post-2030. So what needs to be in it? And actually, can you do that with coherent policy without adding too much bureaucracy in these times?
Well, that's exactly what we are trying to address. We want to simplify, to be easier to attract investments to Europe. And as I said, we have to bear in mind the following. When we adopted the climate law, it was at the peak of the pandemic. So we have delivered for what people's aspirations were at the time. But there was also sometimes not the easiest of the political context to agree on what should be more feasible as well for businesses. And that's why it is so important that we address the issue of bureaucracy and we can show that it is possible to have economy and environment going hand in hand. Because without economy, without prosperity, we don't have then innovation to pursue our climate goals. So we really need to fix, and that's why this, and that's why the omnibuses are the simplification processes that are in course are so important to be able for member states to achieve these goals. But once again, a lot of the issues still remain in the capitals. And it is very crucial that in the Council, even this week, there was a discussion about competitiveness, about where we want to go in the long term. So, Prime Ministers, this is a wake-up call. We need your leadership as well, because we know that the national politics consume a lot of their time. But if we don't fix this, we don't deliver on the European interests. And geopolitics, when we talk about energy transition, there's a trade element here. So it is a geopolitical discussion. And that's why the capitals the prime ministers really have to be aligned in delivering on these common objectives.
Minister, how can countries in the global north and south overcome their current differences and join forces?
Well, a good example is what happened at COP30, where a group of about 80 of us decided to have this meeting in Colombia in April. to find this fossil fuel pathway that we need to get off the addiction to fossil fuels. We couldn't do it at COP in the political process because there were countries stopping. It's a consensus-based thing, so a few countries can hold us ransom, but we took it outside, and we'll be holding a meeting in the Pacific for Pacific Island countries next month, preparing for that meeting. Every region's doing it. And then we go there and we come up with something and we try and tie it back to the UNFCCC process. But otherwise, we're setting up these legal mechanisms, this accountability, and agreeing to, for example, trade measures. EU's taken the lead on that. Other measures that we can agree as a group of countries that we want to implement together and see if we can bring that back to the larger group.
Governor, Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers are actually producing high-quality vehicles at lower price than U.S. competitors, right? Given California's 2035 zero-emission vehicle mandate, do you believe the state can realistically meet those targets without access to Chinese EVs?
Well, if there's any state that can, it's California. But look, my state of mind, let's clarify. 70% of global EVs are coming from China. And it's statecraft for them. It's about supply chains. It's about influence. It's about dominance. These guys aren't screwing around. I say this with admiration. They're flooding the zone in Europe. They're flooding the zone in South America. I mean, what Donald Trump just did yesterday with the endangerment finding by basically eliminating any federal regulations, not just on power plants, methane, but also tailpipe emission, I think was writing a death sentence to legacy American automobile manufacturers. Mm-hmm. You talk about innovation. It's been California's regulation in this space that's driven manufacturing innovation that allows American automobile manufacturers to be competitive globally. It's no longer just cheap. I mean, sure, the BYD Lamborghini Mini, it's $9,700. They're no longer just, now they're doing 5-minute chargers. Fill up your SUV. It's about 5 minutes. It's the tech stack that comes on top of it. And it's a whole generation of young folks. Don't bet against young folks. They bat last, they bat 1,000. We know where the market's going. China gets it. Look at their GDP growth last year. Where was their GDP growth disproportionately? It was in the clean energy space. This is about economic prosperity and competitiveness. And that's why I'm so infuriated with what Donald Trump has done. It's our fiercest competitor moving forward, China, in this space. So California is it. It's the only game left in the EV space. Again, because of the intense investment in R&D. Remember, Tesla exists for one reason: California's regulatory market, which created the incentives and the structure and the certainty that allowed Elon Musk and others to invest and build that capacity. We are not walking away from that. In fact, again, we have doubled down and extended our nation-leading efforts through 2045.
How will you, get to those targets by 2035?
We have a plan. We call it a scoping plan. Every 5 years, the California Air Resources Board puts it out. It's interesting, in that plan, just in the spirit of innovation, California has the second largest installed utility-scale batteries in the world, China and the state of California. That wasn't in our last scoping plan. It was technology that we didn't even envision in our previous scoping plan. So we put out detailed 5-year plans. Every single target California has advanced, we have exceeded. Every single one, proving the point. I know there's sort of this theories that it's just goal setting and that we can never achieve these goals, or they're just stretch goals. Quite the contrary. I think the biggest mistake, in the spirit of Michelangelo, is that the biggest risk is that we aim too low and reach it, as opposed to aim too high and miss it. And that's California's mindset, and it has to be, again, in order for us to compete in this next big global market.
Thank you all. We have 15 minutes, so we go to questions from the floor. The first question, I'd love to invite the Munich young leader, Ryan Oliveira de Aguirre Atias, to ask the first question. Then could I see just a very quick show of hands so that I go around the room? We have someone on the second, and then first row, and then one on the right. But here, let's start with Ryan. If there's a microphone, there you go, right here on the aisle seat.
Hi, thank you so much. So my name is Rayane. I'm from the state of Pernambuco in northeast Brazil. And I've been quite happy to follow the discussion today, and I'm very honored to be the first Munich young leader to ask the question. So while national diplomacy is failing to tackle climate change, subnational diplomacy is moving forward. But not every state is as powerful and rich as California. So I come from a very poor region in Brazil, where fighting climate change means improving people's access to urban infrastructure, clean water, food security, health public services. So I guess my question is how the international community can help subnational governments and local climate action to move forward and making sure that resources are really getting to that level. And how do you see the future of climate finance in this context that we're facing now, where powerful countries are diverting international aid into defense?
Thank you. Great question. Let's have maybe Governor Andrew and then Governor Newsom. Yeah.
The very first way is to help you with technology and the provision of equipment. I speak to countries all over the world who ship in oil tankers every few days or gas tankers every day. And I'm saying, well, stop doing that. Like I'd say to your own state, the technology exists now with solar, with wind, with batteries, and most importantly with AI. We didn't have it only 6 to 9 months ago. We didn't have it, but we do have it now. You can run a renewable energy grid in your state with AI, which wasn't possible before. You get a cloud bank floating over the top of a solar farm in your state, everything changes. You have to make decisions at literally light speed. Humans can't do that. We've pioneered how to do that, but so has other institutions. So I'd say speak to whoever you need to, but particularly those in leadership, and say, you're blowing up our state's capital, you're keeping us poor, buying all this fossil fuel. What we'd like you to do is to invest that in replacing all those imports into our state with our own ability to make all our own power, 24/7 base load power. And that is within your grasp now. It wasn't, but it is now. And this is the transition in action. This is the economic transition in action. So I'd be delighted to speak to your state because I'm seeing it happen in my own country. It can happen in yours.
Governor?
When I was in Belém, we signed 22 MOUs with 22 states in Brazil. And the MOUs are not pieces of paper. They're commitments from the state of California to provide technical assistance and to provide resources and a resourceful mindset, meaning an openness to engage in problem solving. Let me give you a specific example. The modern environmental movement in the United States, again, started in California under Ronald Reagan. Not because Ronald Reagan was a fierce champion of clean air and clean water until he had to be. Los Angeles was so smoggy that businesses were complaining to the governor saying, we can't do business here. So he decided to do something about it with tailpipe. And that's exactly why Donald Trump just said, pollute the hell out of the United States. That's called deficit spending. Pollution is an act of theft in the health of a nation and the cleanup costs. You saw all this just in the United States of America alone, 23 weather-related events last year that cost the taxpayers over $1 billion. We are, again, as dumb as we want to be. Don't tell me this is about saving money. Quite the contrary. But it was interesting, and this is the point, the folks in China paid some attention. We established relationships with China. They send technical teams, and literally some of their low-carbon green growth specific to their cap and trade programs came from the example of California and the work we did. And Beijing is proof positive of a lot of that technical assistance and support. So that's at scale the kind of work we do in terms of this relationship, nationally, subnationally, people to people, to actually solve problems despite, again, who's in office in a particular jurisdiction.
Thank you. So we have a question here on the second row and then first row. I'm actually going to get 2 questions at a time because I think we have a lot of questions and only 10 minutes left.
Thank you. So I am Eugene. I'm also one of the Munich Young Leader Program this year, and I'm from China. I work for Rocky Mountain Institute, a US-based think tank focusing on energy security. Energy transition. So my question is, actually in the past 5 years, we have witnessed that the climate issue has become unnecessarily political because of geopolitics, because of trade imbalance, etc. While at the same time, we are also seeing the clean technology becoming cost competitive. For example, in Southeast Asia, also South Asia, we are seeing renewables and also like the electric two-wheelers or vehicles being adopted by the consumer themselves, where the policy are not really in place yet. So it's very like bottom-up development. So my question is, what can we do? What the additional things we can do to make climate more market-based and science-based instead of political-based? What are the additional actions we can take, or what are the things that we must stop immediately now by whatever stakeholders in this climate regime?
Great, thank you so much. Let's take a second question from the gentleman on the front row.
So thank you. I'm Pereira Pons, I'm MP from Spain. So Lidia, I totally subscribe what you said. All countries, we are vulnerable, Spain as well. Second thing, I'm the president of the Parliamentary Assembly of the OSCE, 57 countries. Two things. First one, how can revert this idea that the transition and climate change is paid by middle and lower classes and the elites are taking advantage of this? And the second question is, can we dissociate security of climate security? There cannot be climate security without global security. So I think it's an oxymoron. But look at the room; it's not fully empty, fully booked. But it is the key issue, that this is a political link to both issues. Thank you.
Great questions. Lidia, Pereira, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, I will start by the last one. Well, indeed, what we have to acknowledge that things have changed. That's why I said I referred to the example of the popular support in the streets. It is not the same. Things have changed, but at the same time, it is a responsibility from the leaderships to stay in course in the action that we decided some years ago. Because if we start being uncertain about the policies to take, then it doesn't bring any assurance for the business community. And this leads me to the first question. I think there's a huge responsibility, a corporate responsibility, to be more active and more outspoken, like Andrew said, about these issues. Because companies are also affected by climate action. Or climate effects. So it is really important, and we have to learn, and here it is a challenge for the media eventually, media and social media, but we have to learn more about the success stories that our climate action is bringing to prosperity, to salaries. People have to feel in their electricity bill the opportunities that investing in photovoltaic panels brings, more than using the normal usage of electricity. So it has to be felt by people. The same way, unfortunately, that it is felt when we have a climate disruption, like the example I gave, when my rooftop, part of it just disappeared. The other way around, the positives of what the economic model that underlies in the climate climate action, then I think we can stay in course. But to conclude, the business community is really crucial here, and I see a lot of silence, and I see a lot of fear sometimes when it is the time to be more vocal. And I'm saying this because, as a member of the European Parliament, we had now the discussions about, and the decision about Mercosur, the trade deals. Trade deals are, by the way, great instruments to make sure that everyone takes its part in the climate action. Mercosur, a huge opportunity for the European industries at large, all the sectors, from agriculture to automotive. But there was a vocal mobilization from farmers against Mercosur, but the impact for the industry is huge. So it is time for businesses to speak up about the good things, about the positives that this transformation is bringing to the world. And we don't see that. We only see the worst part of only when there's climate disasters or whatever, but we don't see what the clean technologies are bringing for families and for companies. So it has to be visible for people so they feel mobilized in the efforts that we are making and in the salary that they are taking.
Andrew, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, that a lot of people may, you know, a lot of chief executives maybe continue on this path, but they don't want to be vocal because they're worried about politics.
Yeah, look, if I can just ask your question very concisely. I think, of course, the way you frame the question, you're already doing very much the right thing, but I'd ask your leaders now, when are you going to stop burning fossil fuel? Name the date. And you're not doing it because, you know, on one side of your life you're a scientist or a philanthropist or whatever. You're doing it because you want a better economic solution. You want a higher standard of living for a lower cost of living. And if they say, well, oh my goodness, I don't think I can name a date, then say, well, the technology's there, the examples are there, the talent with you isn't. What about you get off the stage, give the microphone back and hand it to someone who will name a date to get off fossil fuel? You'll all be better off.
Okay, we have 5 minutes. I'm going to try and get 2 more questions. So here on the third row, and then I don't know if there's a microphone coming. So that's the first question, and then we can take a final last question. They're from the person sitting in the booth on the left afterwards. Yeah, go ahead.
Gavin Newsom, hi. Lidia Burke from Andrew Forrest's Native Australia. You speak about reclaiming leadership on climate change after temporary Donald Trump. But one of the things we're observing about the US from the outside, at least, is actually there's a lot of timidity to push back on anything that Trump is rewriting. So where is your confidence that you can lead the United States people to this debate and putting Humpty Dumpty back together again if you can? Well,
people better buck up, wake up. I mean, I made some pretty aggressive comments in Davos. I think I handed out knee pads on stage for, you know, corporate leaders, sold out universities, you know, law firms in my country that are selling out. You just got to call this stuff out. Look, the polluted heart of the climate crisis is big oil, period, full stop. That's what this is all about. I mean, that's where the politics, that's where the timidity comes from. You talk about the tech stack. You can't get in one of these modern new vehicles and ever want to go back to the old gas guzzler. I mean, the technology, and we can talk in terms of just energy efficiency and how we bring down costs, and we've got to address those cost issues. But the biggest problem is the deceit and the denial that's happening because of these special interests. And so you just have to have the courage to call it out. And I agree with you. It's infuriating what I hear privately, but is not expressed publicly. And so we have to call people out. They'll be held to account. They will be judged and ultimately judge themselves. And I think this is a moral moment, across the board, simultaneous crisis, not just climate, but democracy. All this stacking of stress. And we all have a relationship to it. Society becomes how we behave. We are our behaviors. And so all of us have a role to play. All of us have agency. We can shape this conversation, but we have to stand up with more clarity, conviction, and we have to be more consistent.
People don't speak up because they're afraid of retaliation.
Yeah. Well, you know, buck up. So am I. There's probably not a politician in the United States. I mean, I'm under assault attack by this guy every single day. Here's the President of the United States. He's 80 years old, and he's calling me a nickname that an 8-year-old called me, new scum. The President of the United States. You saw the racist tropes he put out. This is the President of the United States of America. Call this guy out. Stop this timidity. Stop with the BS diplomacy. You're in the rearview mirror. The recklessness of our own actions. And we're all becoming Chamberlains in this space. We have a supine United States Congress, so we have to stand up. Corporate leaders have to stand up. People have to stand up.
That is really something I said very strongly to endorse your point, Governor, very strongly to the corporate leaders all across Davos, across the world, and I opened this afternoon. Remember your values. Your values brought you here. The science hasn't changed. Your values should not change. They shouldn't weaken just because they're threatened and challenged. When this is the time now to stand up. As Governor Newsom was saying, I say to every corporate leader in the world, now is the time to stand. Face into this onslaught against your common sense, against your own values. 2030, you're going to be judged. Please be judged well. Act now. Do not fade. Do not go quiet. Do not go silent. This is the time to speak up, and this is the time to act.
Thank you. I promised the last question. We're almost out of time, but please go ahead.
Elisa Miebach, climate reporter for the German public television. After the brilliant conclusions we just had, I would just like to ask Minister Regenvanu of Tuvalu, can you give us one conclusion? We're talking about the nexus of climate and security here. What does it mean for you coming from the front lines of climate change?
Minister.
It means if we don't address the climate crisis, if we don't immediately do a phase out of fossil fuels that's fair and full, as Andrew's been talking about, there's going to be no future for lots of people in the Pacific Islands, lots of people in the small island developing states. And we're part of this world, you know. We're part of this international community, and we need the support of everyone in the international community. And we don't need this kind of backing away from the issue that we're seeing. We know that it's the oil lobby. We know that it's the profits that are being made by certain companies that are causing the world to end. And it's the countries in this room, it's the developed states, it's the first world that needs to deal with this problem, because we're the victims of your problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a wonderful panel. Thank you.
Thank you.